my first real, like, I want to be a climber was the physical. It was, I want to conquer this thing that a lot of people won't or can't, right? I used to love getting a word the day before. Hey, by the way, get some rest tonight. We have a 130-foot tulip to remove tomorrow. That's, this big. And I was like, yeah. And then, but then it shifted over time where two things happened. One is later on, I hated losing those big trees. If they need to come down, I still didn't like it, but I did them. So the challenge wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to do this, puzzle that's just massive. And it's going to challenge me physically, mentally, like everything. But part two was knowing that knowledge and having an appreciation for the species, everything about it, and learning about trees as an organism made me climb them better. I was more respectful. I was more interested in what I could do to like help this tree survive when I'm pruning, which made me love pruning more than climbing for any other reason at that time. And I think when you marry those up, the physical and the spiritual part of tree climbing, in a nutshell, it makes you a better climber for everything else that we do, including the championship climbing events that we do.
That's awesome.
I don't think I would have been as good of a climber had I not married those up. Because I see people like that. I see so many climbers in the world that get really good at one thing, but they're still not really getting it. You know what I mean? Like they don't really understand the industry is what's really out there until you're like broad-based, well-rounded, and it comes from different people. When you pull this stuff in, that's when you really have the appreciation and you just become better. Everyone wants to talk about find your passion. I didn't find my passion. It found me.
That's right.
And it found me as a process. It wasn't like I'm a tree climber, I'm passionate. It took time to really sink in, and then I really became passionate. It took years. So I don't like when I hear people say, "Oh, hey, you got to find your passion and you'll never work a day." It's true. Right. When you have a passion, you're gonna feel like you're not working, but it doesn't happen just because you start doing something. You're like, "Oh, this is it." It doesn't click for everyone like that.
I can attest to that. Short version would be more of I knew this is what I wanted to do, but it took a while before it became a purpose.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And to your point, like when you start connecting with the right people and, like your brother, for example, we can talk about all the competitive competition climbers, but once all of that started to, like you said, marry together, then it became a purpose. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I have a purpose. Where am I going? What's the next natural, progression, conversation, which is kind of how we're here at the same time.
I just have a natural question. It's like you segued perfectly for me because it's actually on my list, and this is something I grapple with, and I'm just curious if you do too. So yeah, we've agreed we're all passionate. I don't think we would have the sustained time in the industry we did if we didn't have a passion for it, and all those things you mentioned. I love how you drew the species, all the, it's literally the different way the different woods behave and the way different trees attachments are and all those little complexities and nuances that we feel in touch. My question is this, and sometimes I like to dissect cliches sometimes and kind of put them to rest, but that, if you're passionate about something, you'll never work a day in your life. I know there are days when I don't, quote, feel like it. There's days I get up, I'm tired. I'm dealing with family things. There's been significant issues in both of your lives recently. You can expand on them at some point if we get to that. But my question is, and I'm going a long way around, is do you have days like that? Number one, where it's you maybe get in a funk or you're having a day that's off. And if so, are there some skills and little things you do to hit that reset button?
Great question.
And actually, that's a question I hear a lot.
Oh, okay.
Like privately, I'll get messaged on Instagram, for example. Somebody say, "Hey, do you ever feel like this?"
Yeah.
And because you always seem like you just love what you do, and I absolutely do love what I do, but I always have had those feelings too. I think, because it's so physically demanding, that amplifies that feeling more than a lot of other things. Plus, if you get stuck in a certain routine and everyone around you is in the routine, it's like it's not that engaging. So you get stuck in the mundane aspect of work. Maybe you're doing stuff you don't really care about. Like, let's say you don't like pruning trees, like shaping them. Now you're shaping for a week straight. it's easy to get into that rut. Or the weather's really bad. You're tired of working in the rain and you're beat up and you got stuff going on in your private life. Or for me, like it's Thursday morning and I played hockey last night. That's usually a difficult morning for me,
Okay.
but I get, because I'm more tired, right?
Yep.
But I've learned to cope with it very simply for me is, and then we kind of talked about this a couple times for a long, like through the years, I find just digging into the work satisfies that. When you start feeling like, I don't know, I don't feel that excited to do it, challenge yourself to just go in there and say, you know what, I'm just going to dig in and work hard, physically work hard, challenge myself to just climb a little faster, pick up something heavy, like all day long. Like if you're working with your ground people around you, try to outwork them, like challenge yourself throughout the day. And also knowing that, because I've been through it plenty of times, I know that it's a blip on the radar.
Right.
So if I put the blinders on, dig into the work, focus on just that, and don't focus on like whatever, it helps. And I've actually learned mentally, which I know we've talked about as well. I come into work, say a day like today, and I got whatever, dozens and dozens of guys around, and I pay attention to their energy, and I see the theme is, oh, it's going to be so hot today, right? What do I hear? Oh, I hear they're already beat before they start because it's very natural. It's human.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a hard day yesterday, for example. Like, what I do is try to shift that with very simple techniques, not even really trying to overthink it. I go out there and I hear that. I'll say to them, how hot's it going to be? Oh, it's going to be like 97 today. I was like, damn, that sucks. I was hoping it was going to be over 100. And they're like, what? I was like, oh, I love working when it's more hot like that. The hotter, the better. And meanwhile, I don't want a lot hot. What I want is them to realize, yeah, maybe it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Maybe it isn't any worse than the day prior. And in that split second, it gets easier. And now they can focus and be like, yeah, maybe it's not so bad. And I tell them to challenge themselves, right?
Yeah. Mind me jumping in.
Yeah, of course.
So that right there is why you're a leader.
Well, I didn't get that from myself. I can tell you people I got it from. My dad's one.
Okay.
My grandmother as well. Her attitude was just always on me, and she was fantastic. But I got plenty of mentors and people I love.
And usually leaders have mentors.
Yes.
So 100% agree with that. But what I was going to say, the reason why this key to jump in now is because what you're doing, you're not telling them. Like you're in it with them. You're like, it's 100 degrees. I like it. You're in there with them, and that's. I just want. I feel, because they're like, and nobody wants to do it. I don't care who you are. Like at some point, it's gonna get tiring. Absolutely. But the mindset is what you just nailed on. But more importantly, you're willing. You're in there already. You're doing it with them. Yep. I think that's the key thing too.
No doubt.
I just want to add to what you're saying. So like you said, dig in. Is there a way to simplify that? Like what you did was one way, but is there this is what I do with my guys or anybody that works with me, is when school, you want to get 100 on your test. At no point do you purposely get an 80 or 70 or at no point. Your job, regardless if you're tired, regardless of what you're going through, is you're trying to get 100% on this test. That means every time you lanyard in when you go to cut, I cannot lanyard in and it's fine, I'll be okay, but I'm not going to get 100 on my test. Right. And the reason why I like to use that is because when I'm tired, when I'm having a hard time with personal challenges, that doesn't change. So I'll never be able to use that as an excuse why I'm not getting 100%.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it'd be like, why didn't you do that? Because I was tired. Like, well, that's an excuse.
That is. Yeah.
But are you saying you were so tired you physically can open the carabiner and then put it around the tree, then get out of the tree?
Yeah.
Right? At that point, and then I would imagine, all three of us are leaders, I would imagine at that point, if somebody said I physically can't do this, we would make the adjustment and be like, okay, get out. We're keeping you safe.
I'll do it.
Exactly. You know?